welcome back to Too Young To Grieve, and today I'm joined by Madeline Eastwood. Maddie is a grief and fitness-based content creator who's done some really meaningful work around grief, mental health as well, and movement. And I'm really grateful that she's taken the time to come on today to bring some new perspectives to the podcast. So, Maddie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. That was very professionally done. I thoroughly enjoyed. Yeah. I'm gonna start using that explanation of like me in general now. Can you like send me that,
I
and
will
I'm
do.
gonna start
Honestly,
using it.
I felt very
It's my
professional.
LinkedIn.
Felt very LinkedIn vibes when I was reading that
Yeah,
out. But no, we
yeah,
actually
that
had
was bro.
I had to think really hard about that. You know, like the real introductions and things. This is obviously the second guest episode of Too Young to Grieve, so that did feel really fancy, and I quite enjoyed doing it. So I might do that
I
introduction
thoroughly
style
enjoyed
going
it.
forward. But you can definitely use
Yeah,
that one. But no,
thanks. I'm
we
gonna
had
put it
to
on my LinkedIn.
we had to actually wait to lock today in, didn't we? Just in case your boyfriend had secretly planned something for you, as you said he does. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he doesn't do it out of like romanticism. He just like kind of doesn't, bless his heart, think that I have plans. Um, so he's actually going on a run while we speak, and then when he's done doing his run and I've done finished doing the podcast, I'm going to go on my run while he cleans his car. So at some point we'll spend some time together this weekend, but this morning is not that time. But never mind.
no, I'm glad that you were able to jump on and give some fresh perspective to the podcast. But that when you said that, it did make me think. I know we spoke about it before, but I haven't really spoken about relationships on this podcast. As a single man, I haven't got the experience of what it was like grieving and being in a relationship, which I think would be a really important part of a lot of people's journeys through grief. And I think it would definitely be interesting to discuss. So, well, on the topic
Mm.
of it, what has it been like being on a grief journey and in a relationship at the same time?
Yeah, I mean it's it's been strange. I can't lie. I met Dylan, that's his name, even though on my Instagram I call him the Northerner. I met him on, well, we matched on Hinge 2 months to the day after my brother died by suicide. And I look back at it and I think, God, like, oh, that was very quick. And something that always kind of freaks me out about us is that he never knew Joe and he didn't know me before Joe,
Mhm.
before Joe died. So I always think that like that kind of the pre-grief me is a very different person to who I am now. And I think that you'll resonate with that in that, you know, when you're a young person, you're saying like young, free, living your life, not really knowing any like hurt or pain. And then something like that happens where you lose someone way before their time
Mhm.
and you're kind of forced to kind of get real. You have to mature very quickly. Not that I wasn't, you know, I was still 24 when he died. So it wasn't like I was a child, but I had to mature really quickly. So seeing Dylan now and not knowing that he doesn't know me before Joe died is a really bizarre kind of concept to me.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's difficult in the first kind of year, I suppose. I was not my best self, obviously, and I think that I didn't really plan to be in a relationship. I was kind of just on Hinge to, you know, have a bit of fun, go on a few dates and stuff, and obviously ended up meeting him. And um, he he didn't know how to deal with someone whose brother had killed themselves.
Mhm.
And I didn't really know how to deal with losing my brother to suicide either. So it was tricky and it was hard navigating whether kind of my emotional outbursts, I suppose, were legitimate because of the relationship or because something had happened there, or whether it was kind of feelings that were bubbling to the surface that I'd been pushing down about Joe. So yeah, I mean, I think that when you're in a relationship after having gone through something like that, it you come out of it stronger, but it's definitely not
Mm.
been smooth sailing. Um, and I guess I'm very lucky that he's fairly patient, but he also doesn't let me he doesn't let
Fairly.
me like get away with murder. Yes, yeah, he is patient. I don't give him enough credit for how patient he is, mainly because I just think, well, I'm literally amazing, so it's either like it or lump it. Um, but he doesn't let me get away with murder, and like he does hold me to account when I'm not that I behave like badly in terms of what you might think badly is, but like when I'm not communicating my feelings, or when I'm kind of flying off the handle a bit quicker than a normal person might do, or over something that's like comparatively quite small to what you might expect for that kind of reaction. And I think that's helped me along this grief journey, is that, I haven't been just allowed to get away with behaving in a unhealthy way, I suppose. I've had to kind of push it into more healthy mechanisms. So yeah, it's a journey, but I
Mhm.
guess that's grief on the whole, isn't it? So,
Yeah, yeah, literally. The grief journey is up and down, probably the same as, like you say, having a relationship through it is probably, like I say, I just can't imagine it, because like you said, the feelings of grief are so up and down. Like one day you might be okay, then the next, you'll just might be angry, and I feel like in a relationship,
mm,
it could just show up in those ways in the relationship,
yeah,
because what you're feeling, you've never felt it before. Like you literally said it at the start, and I couldn't agree more. Like the life before grief and the life after, it's just completely different. Like you can just literally become a completely different person as a
yeah,
result of it. So you're still like learning yourself, and then you said like 2 months you're now in a relationship, and
yeah.
you're now learning another person as well. And it's like, how was it, in terms of the feelings that you felt obviously with
Mm.
grief? Do you feel like being in a relationship, were you able to show those feelings, or did you have periods where you thought, like, I've got to just keep this to myself and not share it? Like how would you, for someone listening, how would you say, going through a relationship, obviously everyone's different, but how would you say
Mm.
that is best to sort of do it?
Yeah, so I always had a bit of, I had a, I think, I mean, probably not unique, but maybe a slightly obscure approach to, especially suicide bereavement. I think I threw myself into every resource at the very beginning when Joe had just died,
Mm.
and you read a lot about it not being spoken about enough, and suicide being a taboo subject that people shy away from talking about, and that there's some shame around it. But I was like, no, I'm absolutely gonna, like, I'm gonna own this, and I'm gonna present myself as someone who has lost someone to suicide in a very, very traumatic way not that long ago. So, I mean, one of the first things I said to him was that my brother died 2 months ago. Um, and there were times when like it would get ugly, and I'd just need a bit of time to kind of have those big cries.
Mm.
Um, and there were times when I'd have a big cry around him, and he'd understandably be a bit bewildered by what on earth was unfolding in front of him. So there were times when I probably could have done without him seeing quite how dysregulating it is. But at the same time, again, I'm who I am. This is something that I've gone through. Like it's such a key part of who I present and am now, that actually I think that the number one best thing that you can do for yourself when you're going through something like that is be honest with those around you about what you're going through, how you're feeling, because then one, talking about it I think makes it less scary, and two, you're you're educating those around you on how to deal with it, and then they might be able to use that in their attitudes towards others as well. That, actually sometimes you're just feeling some very complicated feelings. I mean, for me, when Joe died, I was absolutely furious.
Mm.
My main grief symptom or stage or whatever was anger. I was like so
Mm.
angry with him. How could he do this to us? How dare you? And it's a very complicated feeling to feel because obviously I love him so much and would do anything to have him back. But then there's a part of you that just wants to have him back so you can kill him again because you're so angry with him. And that does manifest itself. You have a shorter fuse when you're feeling those feelings. And you just have to own it as well. You have to own the fact that you're going to feel those feelings. You're not always going to be very nice to people who probably don't deserve to be on the receiving end of your not niceness. But you just have to own it and say, like, this is part of the journey, this is who I am. And hopefully, if people care about you and people love you, they'll stick around to support you through it. Um, so yeah, probably just that, really.
Yeah. No, I
Be
think
honest, own it. Yeah.
I think that's it though. What you said at the end is spot on. I think it relates to obviously relationship, but also friendships, families. Like if you're honest and you do have a breakdown here and there, you are a bit angry here and there, and you show it to those people. I think that they can, if they do love you enough, they can understand. Look, I can kind of accept why you're doing this and why you're reacting in that way,
Yeah.
and I want to help you. Like all, I always say, like the best thing that someone could ever say to someone grieving is like, look, I kind of get why you're a bit angry, but like I'm here for you. So if you want, when you're ready, like if you want to talk to me about it, like I'm here for you. Like I think
Yeah.
if they do love you, they will do that. So like being honest, like you said, and just saying, look, this is how I'm feeling at the moment, take it or leave it type of thing, and if they do love
Mm,
you, they're gonna take it and they're gonna help you through it. So yeah, it's really
yeah.
interesting to get that perspective on relationships from my end because I've never sort of dealt with it. So, and I'm sure a lot of people will be able to take a lot from that. But you kind of said it yourself. Do you feel like it has made the relationship stronger? Because it's pretty much probably one of the worst things anyone can experience. So if they can, if you can get through that, you can get through anything really.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had our hardships. We did have a period of not being very good friends over the summer, and then but I think that actually like that wasn't really to do with like the grief and stuff. It was more to do with the fact that I think you go through like a transition when you're in your like mid to late 20s, when you suddenly realize that every relationship you're in isn't like, it's not, it could get serious. And I
Mm.
think that there was some like self work to do on both sides during that period. And look, I'm not ungrateful for it. It was part of the reason why my Instagram's taken off. So,
Has its
that's
benefits as
helped
well.
me. Yeah, exactly. Could have done without like the heartbreak, but
Mhm.
we made it back to each other, and we're like the relationship we're in now is incredible. It's so different to what it was before, but like it's a team. Like we're a team now. It's a partnership. We work together, we laugh together, and there's less pressure on it. I think, despite the fact that we've kind of admitted to ourselves that this is probably quite a forever thing. Um, Not that we're not happy to have it forever. Um, but yeah, I think it definitely has made us stronger, but I think also he doesn't know any different, so he knows me as the person that I am now, and the person who doesn't really care about what people think of me, and is very honest about my grief, and doesn't shy away from these difficult subjects. And I think he respects me for it, and I respect him for putting up with it. So yeah.
Putting up with it is a very interesting way to
Yeah.
describe it. But I get it. I get it. Do you think like, because from my perspective, when it comes to friendships, when it comes to relationships and that side of grief, I think a lot of it could be to do with how like vulnerable we kind of feel with the loss because we've lost someone so close to us through death. We're
Mm,
like, well, if someone can get taken away from us like that, then, how can I be safe in my own relationship? How can I be safe in my own friendship and things like that? And from your experience, what would you sort of say to someone who does potentially feel like that in their grief journey at this moment in time, whether it's relationship, whether it is friendships? Do you have any sort of thoughts around that side of things?
Yeah, I do, and it's interesting because I have maybe a two-pronged approach. Is that there's one side of me that's terrified, and he lost someone to suicide not long ago. Not someone close to him necessarily, but like close enough that he will notice their absence. And he was very struck by it, and completely understandably. And I remember saying to him, like, please never do that to me. And it was the first time I'd really kind of thought about it, like, God, like, you see so much about men's mental health, and um, it is truly an epidemic that so many men are taking their own lives, and it happens so often, and so many people are affected by it. And I just suddenly thought to myself, like, oh my goodness, like, am I doing enough to emotionally support you? And please don't ever do that to me. Like, what if that happened, and this happened again? And then I have another approach that's like, if I've lost my brother so young in such a traumatic way, like, surely that can't happen again. Surely
Mm.
I've had my fair share of like premature loss. And like, I touch wood when I say that, because you, as you and I both know, like, life can be taken in such a short period of time,
Mm.
and you don't ever expect these things to happen. But yeah, I'm kind of like it, like deluluing myself into thinking that it could never happen again. But equally, every now and again, that does creep in, and I think that probably part of my ethos and approach to life in general is, you get one shot at this. There's no point in stressing about what could happen, or should or should not happen, or might happen if you do something, or might not happen if you don't. But at the same time, my grandpa always says, don't scream before you're bitten. And I think that that
I like that.
captures it really. Like, there's no point worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. So just crack on, enjoy the time that you have, enjoy the life that you have, enjoy the people around you that you have, treasure those that deserve to be treasured, and also the people that don't necessarily deserve to have the best of you. Don't be afraid of kind of walking away from those situations.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, just enjoy what you have in front of you in that moment as much as you can.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that response because you covered, yeah, we do can feel vulnerable, can feel a bit unsafe at times, but also at the same time, you know what? Like, why would we let ourselves just live like that when we can still, there's still, I say, like, even the life after grief can still be like beautiful. There can still be good things that happen.
100%.
And if you live like you said there, like, just like it's too short, like you're just gonna be so much better off for it because it can still be really good. It still can be really good.
A
It
hundred
might
percent.
seem like it can't be, but it can be.
Yeah.
Um, but that was actually like you touched on a couple of things that I wanted and I'll go back to it. But I think just while we're on that topic of things, like I've seen your videos and I've seen some of the things that you say, and I like them because I have that view as well. But I've also spoken to a few people this week, and they do feel like like it's people grieve differently at the end of the day. Some people just
Mm.
think there isn't sort of a life after grief and that's it. Like I'm not going to be happy again type of thing. But how do you? Because I'm the same. How do you stay so positive like after it and how do you have that
Yeah.
mentality? Like just to take life by the scruff of the neck and just go for it now.
I think that I think it all ties back to the fact that like life can literally just end in an instant. And I think that unfortunately my brother, we don't really think that he intended to die. We think that he intended to kind of send a bit of a warning shot. And unfortunately, he did that in a way that's pretty decisive. Um, and I just think, like, wow, like, if life can be taken away from you that quickly, or and in split second decision has the power to end it all, and you get one shot. I'm going to make the absolute bloody best of it. You get one shot to be exactly the person you are in this moment right now for these 80 something years, or however long the universe or whatever you believe in allows you to live. Just make the most of it. Like, why wouldn't you? Take every opportunity by the balls, and just say yes to the things that get offered to you. I mean, I've always kind of had that approach because I look back on it, and in 2020 I went on a dating program, and
I didn't know that.
like it's I went
That's
on,
news
yeah,
to
I
me.
know, I know, I went on first dates,
Ah,
and the
I've
episode is
applied for
out
that.
there, but I've have you? It's so
Previous,
good.
not
It's so
recently, not
good.
recently. This was a while back, but
Oh,
I have.
well,
I'll
they
admit it.
keep you on file, but
Yeah.
it was incredible. But like I said yes to that, I was like, can I swear?
Yeah.
But sod it, like
Yeah.
fuck it, I'm gonna go on it. And I look back and I'm like, oh, I kind of have always had that attitude, but even more so now. Like, amazing opportunities will come your way, and it's how you choose to act on that. But also just enjoy, like, romanticize the life you're living. You're not I don't always feel like this either. I don't want to, like, suggest to people that I'm always positive and I always have, this attitude towards everything, and every day I wake up like the sun is shining and everything. Like, there are some days when I feel like the world is ending and like things will never get better, and just kind of like I'm destined for doom. But it slowly then starts to creep back in that actually I've achieved some really quite incredible things
Mhm.
since Joe died, and I want to continue doing that, and I want to help other people, and I want to live fully, really enjoy the opportunities that I have, explore what I can of this world, so that when I leave this world, whenever that might be, I know that I've made a difference and I've lived the best way I possibly could have. And I do get it. Some of my family definitely feel like their lives are going to be shit for the rest of their
Mhm.
lives. And that makes me feel really sad for them. And I wish that that wasn't the case. But, as you say, people do grieve very differently. But that's not how I'm choosing to. I'm choosing to kind of, force myself some days, but most of the days is pretty easy to just enjoy it and have a good
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Because you deserve that, right?
I agree. I think that's it. I think deserve it. Like you said, like surely, you know, we've had our bad luck, and hopefully
Yeah,
now we can, just crack on and hopefully have a good rest of our lives. Of course, there's going to be some bad days, some good days. That's how grief is. Like you said, I've got a very positive outlook on life and going forward, but I'm the same. I don't wake up and think, oh, the sun's shining. I'm by the beach and like in
mm,
the best,
yeah,
like my life's perfect. But I just wake up thinking, how can I, take a bit of positivity out of each day, even if I am having one of those days where I just feel numb or like I am
yeah,
struggling. I'm thinking about him a lot. It's gonna happen. That's grief. It's pretty much there, like forever. But there is
yeah,
still like a lot of it where you can build your life around it, and I think that's the best way to sort of look at it. But I wouldn't even say best. I don't want to use the word best because people grieve differently, and the way that people's view on life is their view. But if you can
yeah,
take something from that last question, there is positive things to come
mm,
as well. That's the main thing to think about
100%.
it. So yeah, I'm
Yeah,
glad I'm glad you shared that perspective because I think a lot of people who are struggling, it will give them a little bit of hope that there is, you know, some positivity out of it, even if one of the worst things has happened to
yeah,
you already. But I just wanted to go
100%.
back to something that you touched upon, which as a man, I'm very glad you touched upon it. And I've been quite big on talking about it recently. Um, but it's men's mental health, and I think
Mm.
to get your perspective on that would be really good. Like, how did the loss of your brother change the way that you think about mental health, men's mental health in general, would you say?
Mm. So it's interesting that he was, well, it's not interesting, but my brother Joe and I are quite similar. Our middle brother is quite different in that me and Joe have always been very emotional. Slightly expected from me, I have always had like depression, anxiety, and in 2021 was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder or emotionally unstable personality disorder, which basically means that I feel emotions much, much stronger than the average person. It's kind of what it says on the tin. I'm emotionally unstable, and I take medication and manage that like very well within myself. A lot of the time through movement and obviously medication and therapy. So it was unexpected that he was the one who took his own life, I suppose.
Mm.
Not that I planned to do that, but I don't think I think that if you compared the way that my mental health manifests, my mental illness manifests, and the way that he obviously had some mental illness that allowed him to breach that threshold where he could do himself, that kind of injury. Um, his wasn't so pronounced. His wasn't obvious. You can tell when I'm having a bad time. I'm crying all the time. I'm angry. I have a shorter fuse. Whereas Joe, you wouldn't have necessarily known that he was struggling meeting him. And I think that that is symptomatic of men's mental illness. You just don't know. And sometimes I see, like I was in the gym yesterday. This is a very random example, but the way I look at men now, like I almost sometimes I'll catch someone's eye and I'll just see a bit of sorrow behind their eyes, and it makes me feel really worried for them. I'm like, oh gosh, like do they know that there's help out there? Do they know that there's services available? Or am I just reading into this because of my own personal relationship with men's mental health and suicide? But I truly think it's an epidemic. I truly think that suicide should never be an option, but unfortunately, for so many men out there, it has been an option. And I think there's some incredible work being done in the space. Andy's Man Club is
Mm.
great. I love that there's like Give Us a Shout, Calm, all of those charities doing a lot to combat men's suicide and suicide in general. But I think there's still a long way to go. And I'd like to think that maybe one day I could move into a space where I help kind of businesses identify how they can provide suicide support or mental health support to their colleagues, especially in male dominated areas. Although I'm a girl, so we'll see. I don't know if I want to put myself through that. But at the same time, delve into male dominated areas and just have to grow very thick skin. But I think, yeah, it's terrifying to me. Like, it is absolutely terrifying that it is such an epidemic that so many men are taking their lives because of, I mean, probably the patriarchal system and the way that men are set up to needing to be the strong, grow a pair, be a man up kind of thing.
Yeah.
Such a toxic way to present masculinity, and I'm sure that you've experienced it, that, you know, crying is a weakness, men shouldn't show weakness, emotions are a weakness, and I certainly see that in my own boyfriend. Like, the way that him and his friends present is not obviously not emotional, and he also doesn't really know what to do with my emotions at sometimes. And I think that that's because men are just not taught to deal with emotion, right?
Yeah.
And it's that I think they're not taught to identify feelings, whereas women from a young age, you're gonna PMS, you're gonna have periods, which means you're gonna be stressed and cry and tired, and then the girls are kind of made out to be hysterical, but actually we're not hysterical. We just know how to we just know what emotions are, and then men are the complete opposite because they're not taught about emotions. Um, so yeah, it is scary. It's scary to me that it's remaining on the kind of trajectory it is, despite the fact that there is work being done in the area. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it is true. Like, especially what you said about all the sort of statements around men, the man up, men don't cry, even things like, real men don't wear pink and stuff like that, or like just silly sayings that have been thrown about for
Yeah.
years. But people don't realize how much of an impact that will have on men, because they will think, actually, you know what, I can't wear pink because I'll be looked at a bit weirdly, or I can't cry, like, and it is like you said, I don't think men are taught, we aren't taught really how to deal with our emotions. Like, I would say myself, I'm
Yeah.
quite an emotional guy. Like, the music I listen to, the films that I watch, things like that, I'm quite open with that side of things. But I think even then, like, you might think to yourself, like, I won't say that to my mates, so I won't tell them I've watched that, or this is the songs I listen to, because
Mm,
they might be a bit like, what do you mean you listen to that type of thing? And I think that is just, it is just society, social pressures, and that's how it is. And I think I saw something where, I think what we all sort of know, but genetically, like, females do have
yeah.
things like in their brains as well that allow them to process emotions better, allow them to feel more. Whereas as men, we don't really have that. So being taught how to would help us a lot, and like how to speak up,
Yeah.
how to, do those type of things. And like you said, I think there are a lot. Like, I've heard of Andy's Man Club as well. Obviously, you've got the big charities as well, but yeah, it's work being done, but it's still definitely a work in progress for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is like you said, it is the case. Sometimes you don't know who's struggling as well. That's the thing. Like, I saw a video. I don't know if you've seen it. I think it was one of the Australian gym brands, and there was two guys running, and one of them every morning is like really
Yeah.
positive, and then the guy next to him's
Yeah.
like really sad, and you think, oh, he's the one, and then it's the other guy who's really positive each day. So you just don't know, and it's just, check on your mates, talk to them, ask them,
100%.
and don't feel weird for saying to your mate, like, how you doing, like, like, actually asking them.
100%.
But
Like,
yeah.
mate, no, seriously, how are you doing? Like, tell me how you're doing. I've done a bit of. I'm moving, starting to do a bit of work with a charity called Checking In on a Mate, um, who that's been started by a guy called Paddy, who lost a couple of friends to suicide. And I think like the premise of that is just like check in on your friends,
Mm,
see how they're doing. Just if you haven't spoken to someone in a while, just give them a text. And if they say, "Yeah, fine, mate, how about you?" Just probe a bit more. There's also some really good resources out there, even if you just ask ChatGPT, of like what to say to kind of open up a conversation. Another thing is if you have suspicions that your friend is suicidal, or if they're in like a really emotionally dysregulated place or really low place, um, one thing you should ask them is, are you considering suicide? Don't use like vague language like, are you considering hurting yourself, or like, are you
mm,
going to do anything stupid? Don't, I mean, obviously, if that is the only thing that you can come up with saying in that moment, then that's fine. It's a high stress situation. But actually making someone confront the language, confront the concept of suicide itself, forces them to, they're more likely to tell the truth, but it forces them to take it head on, what the gravity of what's going on for them at that moment.
mm,
And it means that you're going to have all the information you need, because if they say yeah, you know that you need to probably call a crisis line or an ambulance.
yeah,
And if they say no, then okay, the pressure's slightly off for a minute, and you can kind of open up the conversation into a slightly more fluid and open dialogue. So those are some like random, but some random tips that I've picked up kind of in the space is, don't shy away from just asking them straight up. Are you considering suicide? Are you thinking of taking your own life? Are you having thoughts of suicide? Because that's how grave it is, right? That's
mm,
how serious the situation is. Just have those conversations and don't be afraid to say it. If you think that's happening, you'd rather piss someone off by asking them like a really deep question like that
yeah,
than not ask them and then something happen and you wish you had.
yeah.
So that's just yeah.
No, that's really useful, and I'm sure that it, like I say, the research and the charities and people out there doing the work is so, yeah, it's so great, because it needs more attention for sure. And
100%.
yeah, it's just good to see that it's starting to actually happen because yeah, it's quite tough in the UK. I'm not sure about other countries, but to, actually get the help when you do want it. Like some people do want it, or
100%.
families want to help them and they don't get anything, they don't get anywhere unless you can pay or something like that sometimes. Unfortunately, that's the only
Hmm.
way to get the help. So it is tough, and the fact there are people doing things like that for hopefully for free and just getting things going is massive because it even if you do want help sometimes it can be hard to get. So yeah, it's really good to
100%.
see. Just to sort of wrap up that side of things, why do you think that, like from a male perspective, I can sort of, we can sort of guess why, but why do you think like men just don't ask deep questions? Like there's some people that I talk to that we can go on for days and we can talk about really deep stuff and things like that. But then there's a lot of mates, you just talk about football, you just talk about, girls or something like that. Like there's no deepness to it. What do you think that is?
Yeah. I think, I think it's, again, like, if you think back to maybe the school playground, like, it's never been something that's been accepted, or
Yeah.
it's always been something like, oh, mate, like, don't talk about that, or, and us girlies, like, we overshare. I can, ask my friends very intrusive questions, and I, but they are difficult questions to ask, and especially when you don't have kind of the, I don't want to say education because I'm making it sound like people aren't educated, but when you don't have the information and the
Yeah.
resources, and you haven't necessarily been kind of conditioned from a young age to prepare yourself to experience emotions in the same way that girls are expected to be emotional, boys are not, and
Mm.
therefore you don't want to have those difficult conversations. You don't want to open up conversations like that, and it is just easier to talk about football girls, because then it's not so deep and it's not so heavy, and you're just having a laugh. It's kind of like the same where girls, like boys say, like girls have so many more arguments with their friends and stuff. It's because girls, lean more into the idea of being supportive and like having those really deep connections. Whereas I don't think boys are that asked about having really deep connections with their mates. They're just mates. That's not really something that kind of comes in it for them. Um, please do feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but
No, I think
think,
you
yeah,
kind of like when you say like girls do tend to have more arguments, and I've always thought that as well. Like I always like I've got friends that are girls, and I always do think like from our perspective as boys, like there'll be a lot more arguments, things like that, and I'm just like now you say it, it kind of does make sense because maybe there's a lot more arguments because they're actually sharing
yeah.
things that are actually emotional and not just what was the Tottenham score at the
Mm,
weekend. That's probably why they're having an
well,
argument.
exactly. And if you think about it, like a lot of things that if I have a disagreement with someone and I tell my boyfriend about it, he goes, "Is it that deep?" Yeah, sometimes it is that deep. But because boys are like, "Oh, nothing's ever that deep," but actually, it really is that deep. And if you're experiencing suicidal ideation, it really is that deep.
Yeah.
Like we need to start, bringing deep back. Stop, stop shying away from being deep and deepness and talking about like some serious shit. We need to bring it back.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be like the next hashtag, like bring deep back. Because if we're not having those conversations, and I'm joking about that, I'm not going to start hashtagging that anyway. But if we start having those conversations and making it okay, like it's okay to take something seriously. It's okay to say, no, actually, like that does really matter to me. It is
Mm,
that deep. It
yeah.
is that important. It is. I think that's the problem is that we've kind of we were always at school. Oh, it's not that deep. It's not that serious. We don't have to like read that much into it. But actually, there are some things that we should be really reading into, and
Mm,
mental health is certainly one of them, and how you're feeling is certainly one of them as well.
yeah. No,
So
spot on. I
yeah,
think it is mental health is that deep. Like it is like as much as you said it is because I think it still does get overlooked quite a lot. Like I did psychology at uni, so I'm very familiar with like everything that you said, even
nice.
yourself and things like that. Like mental health is what if your mental health is off, then everything else is off. You know, your work, your relationship, your fitness journey, for example. Like, it's not just
Mhm.
it's not just mental health. Like, oh, some people say, you know, it's just a load of nonsense. You know, just crack on, just keep going. What do you mean? You've got this, you've got that.
Mm.
Everyone's got this these days. The reason everyone's got this these days, whatever this means to those people, is because there's more research on it and how much it impacts
Mm.
people. So
Mhm.
it's better rather than just shrugging your shoulders and saying, "Oh no, load of nonsense, I haven't got that." Having the information out there now, like you said, it's not education. It's not like, you know, these people aren't educated. It's just we haven't been informed, and
Mm.
I'm lucky enough to have a background in psychology and mental health, so I understand that it is important. But some people haven't, and it is. It's pretty much your whole life runs on how your brain is operating and how it's feeling, isn't it? If you're not feeling
Mm.
great, you're not going to be doing great in the rest of your life. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something that needs to, yeah, keep going basically, and have the research and support on that side of things.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think it's been a
100%.
really important topic, and I'm glad that we covered it in quite a lot of detail. And
Yeah.
uh, even for a topic like that, not enough detail probably, but unfortunately we don't have all the time in the world, so we
Yeah.
can't
Don't
go
have all day.
into all of it. Maybe another time, but yeah, no, it is a
Yeah.
really important topic. But I just wanted to touch upon obviously Joe and like sibling loss really, because I read a book recently on grief, and it touches upon there's so many different types of grief, and there are so many different types. You know, like
Mm.
even the grief of a person who's still there. The like it talks
Yeah.
about suicide. It talks about it's just so many different words I'd never even heard of. And
Yeah.
for me, I obviously lost my dad, so I talk more about parental and as the son and things
Yeah.
like that. But I don't know how it feels in terms of sibling loss. So what would you say? Like, what do you think people don't know about or misunderstand maybe about losing a sibling?
Sure. I think that with losing a sibling, and this was definitely something that I read. I don't know whether it's necessarily been like symptomatic of my journey, although maybe in the beginning. Um, but obviously, when a parent loses a child, you're always thinking of the parents, like, oh my goodness, that is horrific. And I
Yeah,
certainly feel like that for my parents. I feel, God, like you have had the worst thing ever happen to you. I can't imagine, like, you know, I can't imagine their pain. But in that, you also have the siblings, so me and my other brother, who have lost someone that we expected to have around for the rest of our lives.
yeah,
Um, and that is definitely something, is that a lot of people are always very quick to ask me, how's your mum? How's she doing? How are your parents dealing with it? Like, how's that? And how's your dad? And you kind of think, okay, but hello, like I'm also here. I've also lost him. I've also had to make some pretty horrendous decisions. You know, especially with Joe, who was 5 years younger than me. So I remember the day he was born. I remember him as a baby. He was my baby. Like I absolutely adored him.
yeah,
He didn't like how much I babied him, but I did. And obviously losing him in such a traumatic way is horrific. You think, that's one less person that I will have around me to support me when my parents pass away.
mhm,
Um, Fingers crossed, that's not going to happen anytime soon. But as we both know, again, life can be like taken in an instant. Um, and I think especially for me, it's very confusing. It's very, I don't. I always say I was listening to the We Need to Talk podcast with Paul Brunson, and Holly Hagan was on it. And she was saying, because she just lost her sister, um, and she was saying how she had to be the strong one in hospital with her sister because her parents were not capable, and that
mm,
she was, she said that she was glad that her sister had died, and the doctors were telling them that she was not going to recover from her brain damage, because if she had been like a degree of brain damage, then her parents wouldn't have coped. And I resonated with that so much because when we were in hospital, it was almost like I became the parent of my parents because my mum and dad were a mess, obviously. But
Mm.
I had to kind of go into that fight or flight mode where my adrenaline was powering me through, that I almost didn't really have, like, I didn't really emotionally deep what was happening in that week. And I was trying to sort out organising family to come and telling family friends and sort of like proposing the idea of organ donation. And then I also am the one that said to my mum, you know, it's good, it's better that he's died rather than he's he's survived and been severely disabled. But obviously for my mum it's very different. She would rather just have her son. Completely fair enough. But for me it was like I'm looking at this pragmatically. And I think that there is that in sibling loss, especially in the way that I we lost Joe. You almost have like a more pragmatic approach because you're not blinded by the like kind of parental love and connection and bond. But equally, you've still lost someone that you expected to see for the rest of your life, and now you won't do.
Mm.
And that loss is horrific. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's that sibling loss is bizarre. You're often the forgotten griever,
Mhm.
is what they call us. And I don't let anyone forget that I am a griever. Um, but that's because I shout and scream and make silly Instagram videos about it. Um, but you are like, I think that's probably how you would describe the experience for a lot of people, is that you are the forgotten griever. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to hear that side of things because yeah, with like a sibling, like you say, you I'd never heard that before. The forgotten griever, I'd never heard that, but I guess it probably would come across that way because like you say, everyone sort of, you know, as they would, you know, think that the mum or the dad or the parents are, you know, the ones who are going to be grieving the most because it's their son, their sister, their daughter, you know. So
Baby,
like,
yeah.
yeah, it's their baby. Like, and I touch wood, like you say, I can think, but if like one of my brothers passed away, yeah, like my mum would be distraught, and I probably would be forgotten because it's my mum's baby, my mum's son. So, yeah,
Yeah.
and like you say, you know, you got to do a lot of things and a lot of things because you know your parents are probably just don't really know what to do at the time. So it's really interesting to get that perspective. And I think for other siblings and even for the parents of someone whose child has passed away, it's interesting to hear that perspective on things as well.
Mm,
Either way, it's not a nice feeling for anyone involved. But
no.
yeah, sibling loss is something definitely that I haven't seen too much about. So it's good to get
Mm,
that perspective on it. Um, when you say like the forgotten griever and things like that, do you feel like that's impacted you at all in terms of emotionally or anything like that, or is it just something that you've sort of, you know, I know I'm, you know, probably not gonna get the majority of, you know, people thinking about me potentially, but I just crack on basically.
mm. Yeah, I mean, partly that. At the beginning, I felt, obviously, as I've said before, like anger was my main go-to, my
Yeah.
main symptom of grief, I suppose. And I remember feeling absolutely furious with my mum. And it's awful to say that, but I felt almost like abandoned by my mum because I was experiencing this grief and she was experiencing this grief, but they're two different griefs, and I needed my mum. Like I needed her to tell me everything was going to be okay, and my mum wasn't capable of doing that because she felt like things were going to be even worse than I thought they were going to be. Um, and I remember just feeling kind of like I was on this island on my own and not able to kind of get help from anywhere,
Hmm.
apart from my therapist. And I'm very lucky to be kind of in a financial position where I can have a therapist that I pay for. Um, but you do you do feel when you've lost a sibling, you do feel like lose your parents a little bit into the like black hole of grief, and you don't have those people, like they're your protectors, right? They're gonna, you know, they're the ones that always make you feel like you're safe, especially with me and my mum. My mum has always, given my mental illness, my mum has always made me feel like I'm safe, and she's been my safe person. And I know that if my mum knows what's going on for me, then like everything's okay because we can do this together. But in those first few months, I very much felt like completely abandoned, and the way those emotions manifested was like anger. I was angry with my mum, but actually, you look back on it and you think those are very rational. Like, well, it's not rational, but it's a very expected response from my mum, right? She's also completely grief stricken. Like her world has come crashing down around her. Her baby's dead. She's having to, do X, Y, and Z to sort out the inquest, the funeral, the bank accounts, the probate, all of these things that she never thought she'd have to do for her child. Um, but you're not thinking rationally, you're not thinking logically at the time. So it was just very confusing. Whereas obviously now I look back and I think, yeah, fair enough, mum. But also I think that, as I said at the beginning, you're forced to become an adult in your post grief self. You're forced to just be, you become a lot more self sufficient and self kind of sustaining, because you can't rely on your parents, or you can't rely on, realize that not everything is always going to be okay.
Hmm.
And sometimes people are going to die, and that's it. And that is just, you know, ultimately shit and just horrible and the worst thing ever. And it's not always going to have a happy ending
Hmm.
sometimes. So you're forced, yeah. So I guess for me, like, I was forced to mature, and over time I got better at doing that, and I got more comfortable with the fact that I couldn't always turn to my mum to tell me that everything was going to be okay. um and yeah, that kind of, that's where I got to. But it wasn't always, it definitely was harder in the first few months to
Hmm.
get to that point and train myself to be okay on my own, and be okay with the fact that not everything is always going to be a happy ending and turn out okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
that
No,
was a very long-winded way of
no, no,
saying
I love it.
it.
I love it. The more explanation and more sort of advice, and people feel more seen, heard, and understood. And I think that's the main reason why I started Too Young to Grieve, is because as young people, like you said, we are forced to mature early, basically. And that's pretty much, that's just it, really. That's what grief does to us. Like people say,
Mm,
you're like, you're so mature for your age. Yeah, not really by choice, to be honest, mate. It just kind of came across my lap, and I just had to
literally.
grow up. I had to be there for other people, took new perspectives on life, on things, and that's just made me who I am today. And that's what grief
Yeah.
at a young age kind of does. And I think also in regards to like the parent side of things, I think from a sibling loss perspective, it's brilliant that we've covered that, because siblings who might listen to this or see this will have a lot more perspective on that as well, and feel a lot more seen. And I think from a parent perspective, what I always like to think, like someone said this to me probably this year is the first time I sort of ever thought about it, is it's our parents' first time living too as well. So like they're
Yeah.
going through things for the first time ever as well, and it's like we can't really expect them to know what they're doing half the time as well. So it's, yeah, like throughout the grief process for young people, we're forced to grow up and mature early as well. And from our parents'
Mm,
perspective, it's like they probably don't know what to say or do either as well. So it's like no one really
yeah.
has a clue what's going on. We're all just grieving and sort of working it out as we go,
Yeah.
basically. And that's kind of
And
what
that's,
happens.
yeah, that's such a good point, because if you like, I always think, I've got so long to live without Joe, and I've got so long to like live with this grief. But like, for our parents, they must be thinking, I've come all this way throughout my life, not experiencing this kind of pain, and then I lose someone in a horrible way, or just I lose someone. and they have, I don't know whether they do feel this, but like for me, I think I certainly would feel like I have less time to like get myself back to like functioning, because they have less time than we do. Like we have a bit more time to work with, to like kind of, learn, cope, change, and they have less time to do that because, we have, they're gonna die sooner than we
Yeah.
are. That's just like a little random thought I had on that point. Um, it's kind of got away from me now, but yeah, they have less time to sort their shit out basically,
Yeah.
and we have a bit longer.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like from a parent's perspective, I wouldn't know either, but like it's just you must just be thinking like, yeah, like I've lost someone and yeah, I don't know how long I've got left, but I've got to deal with that now. Like I just want to, so there's so much to
Mm,
process through grief, and even if as a parent someone may be listening, like we get it as well. We get you. Like it's not easy. It's not
yeah,
easy. It's your first time living as well, and I
yeah.
understand that now. Like I can't. I don't think I've ever, to be honest, I don't think I've really ever had an argument with my mum. We don't really do that, but I know some people will.
What?
It'll be petty stuff. It'll be petty stuff. But my mum's quite calm like that. If she's listening, shout out, mumsy. But
Nice.
yeah. No, honestly, I knew this was gonna happen, but we said it before. Like we're both quite
Yeah.
big wafflers. So there's a couple things that I didn't get to cover that I really did want to cover, but I think what we have managed to get through will help a lot of people. So I'm glad that
I hope
we
so.
we discussed it in quite big detail. So thank you very much for that. But I've only ever done one guest episode before, but this is a tradition on guest episodes. So this can be the second
Okay.
time that we've had this question. So
Okay.
no pressure. But I always like to
All right.
ask if someone has lost someone grieving,
Yeah.
um, and they do feel like it's never going to get better, or they're completely alone right now. Maybe at the start of their journey, not really sure what to think or do. What's one thing that you would want them to know?
I mean, the first thing that popped in my brain was you're not alone. And I think that that's possibly an answer you'll get to that question by many people, because ultimately you're not alone in this journey. There is going to be someone out there who can relate to what you're going through. You're never going to find someone who can relate exactly to what you're going through, and everyone's grief journey is very unique. But you will find people that can lend you like a listening ear, who can try and understand what's happened and what you're experiencing, and can provide you with some allyship in that.
Mhm.
Um, my probably my biggest piece of advice to anyone who is grieving is find yourself a grief group. Um, you can usually find them by just googling grief support groups. A lot of charities do them in the UK. Um, but that will truly show you that you're not alone, and that there's so many people out there who will be able to kind of hold your hand and talk with you through it. And also, I've met some of like my favourite people in the whole wide world since Joe died. Some through grief and some through the opportunities that have come. So yeah, you're not alone, but try and look forward to the opportunities that life will still bring, because they may have they may not be here anymore, but you still are, and you deserve to live fully. Um, so yeah, that's probably that.
I love that. I love the last closing bit
That
as
was like
well.
four different bits.
No, I loved every single bit of that, and I think the "you are not alone" line is brilliant because I think it relates to everyone who is grieving. Like you said, there's so many people who are also going through it, and it might be slightly different, as you said, but we do understand it. We do get you, and you can always reach out to groups and things like that as well, and you will feel more understood and seen basically through your journey.
Mm.
But it's also relates to some stuff we've discussed today as well. You're never alone, so there's always someone you can turn to, a mate, family, groups, charities.
Yeah.
Just speak up, talk to people, and just say how
Yeah.
you're feeling. And especially men,
100%.
from what you've heard today, just
Yeah.
speak up, just talk, like it's fine.
It's never too deep.
Exactly. It's never too deep. Hashtag
Bring
bring
deep
deep
back.
back. But no, I love it. That's the new hashtag. And thank you so much
Yeah,
for
brilliant.
your perspectives, Madeline. Honestly, it's been brilliant.
My
Appreciate it a
pleasure.
lot. And yeah, to anyone grieving, you're not alone. Remember that. And I'll see you
Yeah.
next week on the next episode of Too Young to Grieve.